Welcome to episode 52. And thank you very much, Raphael, for donating a cup of coffee to me using buymeacoffee.com. This podcast is about my dad, William Branton Rawson, same name I have, William. And his story is he was born actually in Enid, Oklahoma. I said Houston, but he was born in Oklahoma. And what happened is I didn't know much about him, basically, of his family. I knew, of course, a lot about him. He was a great guy. He's the one who sent me to school in Switzerland. And his idea was that you spend money on the kid when he's in high school, and then he'll probably get into a university on a scholarship. And universities are much more expensive than high schools. So that was his theory. So as one reason why he sent me to school in Switzerland. He thought it would look good on my resume when I wanted to go to university. And in fact, I got a free education at the University of California at Berkeley because he was right about that. And but I went to Rosé because my dad is an engineer. And he designed oil refineries, and they were building an oil refining company in Ravenna, Italy. And so my dad was going to have to spend a year or so in Europe, off and on, working on this project. And while he was doing that, he ran into a man. His name is Larry. The son's name is Larry Favreau, and Larry Favreau. French parents. His father, I think, worked for Schlumberger. And Schlumberger in Houston has the records of where all the oil is in the world because they have the electronics capability. Okay? So anyway, my dad's friend was working with him on this project, Mr. Favreau, and he said, you ought to think about sending your son to school in Switzerland. He can learn French. And boy, the moment my mom heard that, she said, let's do it. And my dad got to work, and he said, okay, yeah, great idea. Let's do it, because I'll be able to see him, because I'll be working in Italy, and I can quickly go to Switzerland and visit him. And so that's how I ended up going to school in Switzerland. And I had a great time there, a lot of fun. And also, at the time, to be fair, the U.S. dollar was very strong. 4 francs, Swiss francs to $1. So for Americans, it was less expensive to go to private school in Switzerland, can you believe it, than to go to private school in Boston, which is where my dad was going to send me. He was going to send me to Exeter, which cost a lot of money. And so he saved a lot of money doing this. And I ended up getting a scholarship at Berkeley. And so it all worked out great. Okay. And then years later, I find out when I go to Argentina to dance tango, that one of the reasons my father wanted me to go to school in Boston was his family, are you ready? Edward Rawson from Wales came over on the Mayflower, and he was the first secretary of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. He founded Boston, Massachusetts. I never knew this. And he lived on Rawson Street, Rawson. Now the name's been changed to Brompton. But it used to be called Rawson Street. It's right by the cemetery there. So that was one of the reasons my dad wanted me to go to school in Boston, because he had family there, and he knew about that. So that was kind of interesting. So I went to Rosé, had a great time, snow skied, did all these wonderful things, met a lot of friends, and it was great. And my dad made it possible. So thank you very much, Dad. And I'll tell you some more about Oklahoma, where he was born, because his father ran away. He told me this. He said, your grandfather ran away from Argentina. No, he didn't say Argentina. He said, your grandfather ran away because his family made him go to medical school. He did not want to be a doctor, so he ran away. And that's how, and I think what happened was, at the turn of the century, my dad was born in 1908. At the turn of the century, in 1908, Oklahoma was a new state. And what they did is they gave people free land, and they did it by having a wagon race. You got your horses to a wagon, and you raced against other people, and whatever land you found, you put a stake in it, it belonged to you. And I think that's how my Argentine great-grandfather's son came up to the U.S. and settled. And then my dad was born in Enid, Oklahoma. Okay, so I think that's the connection. But I didn't know that until I went down to Buenos Aires to dance tango and then showed my credit card, and they said, "Oh, you're muy famoso." And I go, "What are you talking about?" And I didn't know. They said, "Go look on the internet." And then I found out my family's from Boston, Massachusetts, and Guillermo Rausen, his family came from Boston. He was an American, and he came to Argentina after the American Revolution and settled in Argentina and began a new life. Because, so that's the story of my dad's family. So my dad was a great guy. Okay, so that's the end of this story, and I'll talk a little bit more. I have a sponsor, excuse me, and it's SONOSTICS. And SONOSTICS is a great company. They invented a device that you put under your feet when you're sitting at a desk, and what it does is it helps your the blood flow from your lower legs back up to your heart. It's a pump. There are two pumps in our bodies. One is the heart, and the other is the soleus muscle, which is connected to your Achilles tendon in the back. And if this muscle is exercised, it helps the heart. And what we found is it improves health, gets all the fluids out of your lower limbs and puts it back up where it belongs. And also with better blood flow, you have less cognitive problems, better blood flow in the brain. And we're finding that after 6 months, people actually can return to normal from having cognitive problems. So SONOSTICS is my sponsor, and it's a great company. And also I want to thank again Raphael. He bought me a cup of coffee. I put that in the very beginning of my podcast. So if you like this podcast, you'll see you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Derek, DERIKRAWSON, except you do an R. And you can buy me a cup of coffee, or you can just sponsor me, be a sponsor. And you also can click on like buttons and share the video, and that will distribute it. And also make comments if you have anything to say. Go ahead and tell me what you want to talk about, and we'll talk. And you'll see end tags at the top also. So that's another thing that goes on from YouTube. And look for the one that says playlist, and if you click on that, you can listen to all of my podcasts one after another until you get bored. Okay, so this is the end of episode 52. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.